Wow.
Maybe not.
Do you need?
Do I have a agenda? I don't, but okay.
Sorry, what do you?
I was just looking for a we don't.
Would you like roll call?
Roll call? That'd be good.
Commissioner Neely,
Here.
Commissioner Pauley,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Yates,
Here.
Commissioner Mum,
Here.
Commissioner Edgar,
Here.
and Chair Roth.
Here. Okay, shall we open the floor up to citizen comments?
I have none.
None? Okay. Okay, adoption of the agenda. Do we have anyone that wants to have anything carried over or removed or?
I move to pull 13-139 off of the agenda, please.
Also,
No, that's
13161.
13161.
Oh, I'm sorry.
13161.
Item 4A.
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 Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so do we need to vote to adopt it or just adopt it? Right?
There's no need for a motion. No.
Okay. So let's move on to 4B. Urban Renewal Attorney Discussion on 3407. Staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Urban Renewal Commission requested that we have an interpretation of Measure 3407 and how we would be working in the parameters of that measure. I think there is a need to better understand the language and what we can actually do within that measure. So I've invited our Urban Renewal Attorney, Mr. Steve Janik, to kind of give a presentation on that and explain that a little further. So at this time I would like to invite him up to the stage.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. I'm Steve Janik. You asked us being Ed Sullivan and Bill Kobiasman and myself, to take a look at the interpretation of ballot measure 3-407. The ballot measure can be fairly characterized as being succinct, if not terse. There is very little in the way of explanatory language beyond the text of the measure, but the basics are the following. The measure says that there has to be a vote of the people to authorize the issuance of bonds for urban renewal purposes. The only way that that can get on a ballot for a vote of the people is through a referral under the state statute by the City Council. And the City Council has the authority to refer a matter to the voters. For you then, the task is to pass your own resolution requesting the City Council to in turn refer the matter to the voters. So that's the proper procedural step. The other question you asked was, does this mean that the referral to the voters has to occur on a project-by-project or bond-by-bond basis? And the answer is no. The measure gives you an array of opportunities. On the one hand, you could refer a bond measure for a specific project, a project that you approved or you want to undertake. And you would not be referring to the voters the approval of the project itself and the project agreement. Simply, you would be referring to them the specific issuance of a specific dollar amount of bonded debt. At the other extreme would be that you could decide to amend a portion of your urban renewal plan, or all of it, and with that plan amendment, you could say to yourselves, well, we're going to do 10 things in this plan amendment, and we think that's going to cost $100 million. And you could do that and refer the $100 million bonded authorization to the voters without having a specific project in mind or a specific agreement for each or any of the 10 items you want to build. Or you could have a mixture. You could have multiple projects where you have identified the project you've entered into or are about to enter into the agreements necessary to implement the projects, and you can have other projects that are just simply goals that you have in your plan and wrap all that up into one bond issuance. So you have a lot of flexibility.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Is that clear? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I could have one question, I'm sorry, one question. Maybe, Eric, you can help me. Is our plan, urban renewal plan, intact enough that we can take it to the voters and ask for the plan to be done? And is that what you're saying we can do?
I don't know the status of the plan, but what I'm saying you can do is this. If you are taking a new urban renewal plan to the voters, that's not something that's required by ballot measure 3407. It's only the portion of that plan that authorizes the issuance of urban renewal bonds. That's all you have to take to the voters under 3407. Now, you may have to, for other reasons, take the plan to the voters, either because that's what your charter says or state statute says, but I think you need to separate those two.
Okay. And what does our plan look like?
Our plan, well,
What plan?
The urban renewal
yeah.
plan.
Well, it identifies projects, and it identifies land acquisition, and it has a debt limit amount of $130 million. It identifies areas of development and the fact that with the plan you wanted to eliminate blight. So that's it in a nutshell. Other than going into any, I don't.
There's money attached to those plans, correct?
It's $130 million.
So we
and
could
it lists
take-
those projects, and so we can take those projects if those projects have to be done, or if they want to be changed. If you want to change them, the plan has to be amended. But those projects are listed for that $130 million. So you have to.
We
say
would take the $130 million to the voters.
Correct.
Okay.
You're, as I heard Eric talk, your maximum indebtedness set forth in the plan, that is not an authorization that you have to sell maximum the $93 million of bonded debt. That was changed by Measure 3407. The reason you have a maximum indebtedness amount in your plan is that that's a requirement of an urban renewal plan under the state statute. So I didn't want you to have the misimpression that you could exempt that $93 million from the approval of the voters.
Okay.
Right.
Is that clear?
There's mine.
I had always felt like that the Measure 3407 really wanted more texture, more finite review of the projects rather than a globally looking at a big plan where we actually try to come down and identify whether a project provides a benefit analysis and return on investment for all of the contributing people that are part of the process. And to me, it seems like I would love to see us go out and actually ask the voters for concurrence, because I think that's really what they were trying to tell us, and in a wide majority vote. So but it's the choice of the voters, I guess, at the end, if whatever we would take out. But my preference would be that it would be project by project.
I was asked the question of what is the legal range of alternatives
Yes.
you have, not what is the most politically desirable.
Right. Right. Good answer. Yes.
Did you get your question answered? Because it looks like you.
I know. I'm still kind of struggling with it. So
So
it might take an urban renewal one-on-one just for me.
okay, all right. Okay.
In order for us to put the plan to the voters, we would probably have to do some sort of an amendment to the plan, because the plan includes projects that may not be,
There.
well, yeah, I mean, the Rivers project, for instance, and things, I mean, those things have to be changed
Yes.
before we would do that.
That, yes. And so we would have to update our plan, right?
Right.
That's what we would have to do. Okay.
Mr. Mum, in an effort to try to clarify, if you can separate in your mind the plan and its contents from the bare authorization of issuance of debt,
Right.
the money. 3407 deals purely with the issuance of
Right.
bonded debt. You could have a plan if you had some magical source of revenue, where you never issued any bonds.
Right.
And you wouldn't have to go through 3407.
Right.
Okay.
Doug Neely.
Well, Paul, I agree with you. The point is, we could go out for money on the current plan. We could redevelop the plan, but in order to get approval by the voters, I think you'd have to be pretty certain what that money is going to be used for and be able to defend it.
I agree.
And I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Pollak?
I'm going to withdraw.
Okay. Commissioner Yates?
Just to follow up on that point, what level of specificity do you think we need to have to get this bond authorization? Could you just say, yes, the voters approve $130 million for the Urban Renewal Commission to spend any way it sees fit?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I can only tell you what the ballot measure says, and it does not require any level of specificity as to the term of the bonds, the interest rate, the coverage ratio with incremental taxes, any covenants that would be in the bond documents, none of that. Now, maybe the authors of that intended something different, but gleaning their intent is not something that you can do because there's no sort of official record of their intent. Sometimes the courts, in interpreting ballot measures, will go look at the statement in the voters' pamphlet, the statement by the sponsors, statements by those opposed in the voters' pamphlet, that sort of thing. But I didn't see anything in those few things that I saw that fall into the nature of supportive comments that got to that level of detail.
Might I suggest that we have a Urban Renewal 201 coming up, and
Good, it's not 201, 102.
yeah, you've advanced. So after that 201, I would suggest that we have a dedicated workshop to discuss the urban renewal plan
I agree.
and
I agree.
the debt limits.
I have just one more question, okay? And it's probably kind of a silly one. And I understand that the money and the plans are different. I get that. But can we put, if there's two great plans, two great projects that we want to move forward, and it's going to cost $50 million for each project, that can go into one measure?
One referral to the voters,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if any of you would like to have some interesting reading and get ahead of the class on Urban Renewal 201, you can read ORS Chapter 457.
4:57. That'll put me to sleep
Thank
tonight.
you.
Thank you.
That's an elective. That's not a prerequisite.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. William Gifford, do you want to come forward?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, my name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City. The comment I was going to make probably would have been more appropriate during citizen comment, but I didn't know that I was going to make it until I found out that the agenda was changed, and then I would have made it under 13161 4A, but that was changed. So now I'm going to make it now, because it does have to do with urban renewal. So this morning, several people attended a work session sponsored by the Clackamas County Business Association. They have begun a roundtable process where there are, for the first time ever, I'll just say a group of every chamber and every business association in Oregon City, in Clackamas County. And the exercise that we've gone through is to try to determine what the most important things that we can do for Clackamas County to improve the economic environment. And of all of the suggestions that came, this is a lengthy process that we've been going through, but the number one message that comes across is the fact that Clackamas County is not perceived as being business friendly. Mm-hmm. Not a big shock. Got the biggest number of votes of all of these, and we had representatives from senators, from representatives. We had the full spectrum of chambers to business owners. It was a broad spectrum, and everyone said basically the biggest problem that we have is that Clackamas County is not perceived as being business friendly. That's frustrating. I was really surprised that item 4A got pulled off, and no one pulled off of the agenda, and there was no explanation. My suspicion is that this was discussed during executive session, and there's some reason that's not able to be made public at this time as to why. But I just need to say that this is one more example of what is appeared to be, whether it's accurate or not, but what has appeared to be frustrating for the development of economic opportunities in the county. And this is just one more example of how we don't look like we are, whether we are or not, we don't look as though we are business friendly, and that's discouraging.
Thank you.
Mr. Darrow?
Edward Darrow from Wilsonville. Just wanted to comment on the fact that the item was pulled off, and the statement that William just made that was about business friendly. We, as you know, have invested over $8 million in this project. We have consistently done what the city has requested. We had a couple of hiccups some time ago with a couple of partners that one went bankrupt and one decided not to move forward. But we have actually engaged another program which is very well capitalized. I submitted that information to the city. It was reviewed. We have everything scheduled with the intent of actually starting construction in August of this year, subject to the vote. So it's been a very major commitment. And to suggest that somebody would come to this community and invest the amount of money and the time, 5 years, and not get 100% support is very frustrating also. I would really request that you consider that and look at all the facts. The facts are we have been there consistently. We have done what the staff has requested, and we are prepared to actually move forward at a very strong level. We've committed several $1,000s to do a formal campaign towards the vote. We have committed to actually walking in front of the planning department for a pre-application so that the second the vote was accomplished, we would actually turn on all of our contract documents, which is about $500,000. We've committed another total of $1 million to have everything in line. So if you want to have people to come to this community and invest money, you have to look at what those have already done and suggest that, how do you back them and how do you support it? So I would really recommend that you find out the facts. If there's something that's missing that's creating a conflict, we'd certainly be willing to step up and answer those questions for you. So.
Thank you. There aren't any others? Okay, so shall we move on to approving the minutes of the February 6th, 2013 regular meeting?
To approve.
Second.
Okay, so we need to go on the floor. Oh, and it's working tonight, so we're going to be electronic.
Oh, okay.
Touched it, didn't work.
You're on there.
I'm on there. Okay.
There it comes, I guess.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
We have any future agenda items?
I think that the suggestion of a study session to perhaps look at the urban renewal plan, I'd like to include in that discussion whether in fact we would want to expand the urban renewal area to include that portion of the the old Blue Heron site. I presume that probably would have been discussed anyway, but
Right, that'll be touched upon during our 201 session.
okay.
So.
Okay, great. Any other items? Okay.
Yes, you want to speak?
She had signed up for item 4A, which was pulled from the agenda. So if you want to hear
Okay.
them, then
Okay, sure.
hear her.
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Oh, I don't know your name, but yes.
Yes.
Come on forward. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Janie Malloy, and I'm here to introduce myself and a new group that's forming called the Friends of Clackamas Cove. I met with Scott Archer. I've also met with Eric Underwood, and our group is a group of open water swimmers, triathletes, kayakers, and wildlife enthusiasts. And we use the cove regularly. Some of us even use it daily. One of our members used the cove to train to swim the English Channel, and one of our group just recently, this past weekend, did the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon, one of the hardest triathlons in the world. And so we understand that the cove is slated for development, but we didn't know whether you knew, as the Urban Renewal Commission, how much we use this. For instance, the Oregon City swim team actually uses it almost every day when the weather is nice. And so we are getting started, and we just wanted you to know that we're here, that that I personally have joined the Clackamas River Task Force. We're aware of some of the issues with the health of the river, and we really want to support this commission in working to keep Clackamas Cove watercraft free, and to point out to you how vital the economic development of the cove is to future generations. There are very few places to do open water swimming or learn how to kayak where the water is clean, where the water is safe, and this is important to future generations. If you have Mount Hood, that is the crown of Clackamas County, you certainly have the Clackamas Cove, which is the jewel in the crown, and that if you can manage it properly, it can be hugely a financial benefit to the community and to the health of the community, and it will fit in with your vision and your mission. And so we're here to support you in hopefully keeping the cove free of motorized watercraft. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing your information.
Could I just make a comment? When the Urban Renewal Agency purchased the cove, it was the entirety of the water body as well. So the Urban Renewal Agency does own that. I think it's always with the project that Ed represents, and it's always been the intent that water body and land immediately adjacent to it would remain in public ownership.
Yeah.
That's terrific, but for us, for the kayakers, for the longboarders, for the swimmers, the issue of motorized watercraft becomes a danger, a hazard. Pretty much when I'm in the cove swimming, you see this much of me, and that's about it. And so a 12-year-old on a jet ski could just plow me over, and that'd be the end of my life. And there are many places for jet skis, for boats with engines. There's lots of places for those, but there are very few places for open water swimmers. And so I would just like to open your eyes and introduce you to that, because when you have something that's extremely rare, it becomes valuable. And so much like a world-class golf course, you've got an amazing site here that will draw people from all over the country, all over the world, to go swimming in it. Believe it or not, I know if you're not a swimmer, you don't know this, but for me to have to travel to another clean, safe, open water swimming site, I spend more time in my car than I do in the water. And so
Where are you from?
Where am I from? Where do I live, you mean? I live in Canby.
Okay.
So I used to go to the Silverton Reservoir to go swimming. There are also a few other open water courses. There's Klein Line in Vancouver. There's Blue Lake in Troutdale. They get closed because of bacterial problems. And the nice thing is that there's a river flush that keeps the cove clean. So, and the sandbar that's there, that's been there since before the cove was even there, because I don't know if you know the history of the cove, but it was man-made as a gravel pit.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that sandbar that is there helps keep the boats out, keeps the fresh water in, and we think that it's just a really unique place where you can have triathlons and open water swimming events. And like I said, there are events all over the world that people travel to. And I think with longboarding, rowing, wildlife viewing, kayaking, I think you can have just as much economic benefit if you just narrow the use of the cove, and you have a target market, and you certainly have a great partner with Clackamas County Tourism.
If I might ask, if you have anybody in your group that is a resident of Oregon City, there is a opening on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Ooh, thank you. Yes, we certainly do. We have actually quite a few members, and we do have an active Facebook page. If you want to go on, take a look at some of our photos, some of the people who are active in the group.
How many people
that's
do you have in
really-
your group?
Right now, I'd say about 65.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And when did you
So-
form?
About a month ago.
And the impetus for your formation?
We don't want to lose the opportunities to have a safe and clean place to swim.
Well, I really appreciate your comments. I'd never heard this before. I've been listening to these discussions about Clackamas Cove for how many years? A lot. This is the first time I've heard this thing about the longboards and the kayakers and the swimmers.
Oh, it's a great place. I
very
mean, it's
useful.
heaven on earth. We've been training there for years, and when we heard that it was slated for development, we just figured that if you didn't know about it, because you're here in this room and spend a lot of time on behalf of the city, so maybe you're not out there sitting in a rowboat or watching swimmers, but we use it all the time. In fact, over the course of the years that I've been swimming there, at first I only went when the Portland Triathlon Club had their weekly swims, and then as time went on and word got out, every year more and more people go to swim there, and now I can pop down there almost any night of the week and there's somebody swimming, because it's not safe to swim by yourself, especially if the boathouse, the sheriff's boat, goes across the cove, because they go fast and they're not looking for you. Although that, I hear, has been moved out into the Willamette River.
Yes.
So now it's motorcraft free. And again, I would love the opportunity to have some time to put together some numbers for you of just how viable narrowing the activities in the cove, not around the cove, not, the development is really not what we're concerned about. We're just concerned about keeping the water clean and fresh and safe.
Just
Thank
so you
I did not
know, though, were we at the same meeting the other day? I think we were. At
For the task force?
Yes, and they talked about the sheriff does keep a boat there, so they can get up the Clackamas. So keep your swimmers advised that there is a motorized boat there.
Yeah, we're very careful.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. We did future agenda item, city manager's report.
Thank you. I was going to report this to the City Commission, but I think many of you are interested in the Blue Heron site, even though it's not in Urban Renewal District at this time. I was in Salem today testifying in front of a committee at the legislature on behalf of the governor's line item for the redevelopment of the site. There's a $5 million line item in there authorizing the sale of state bonds to help redevelop the site. And we're in conversations right now with the governor's office and others about what the match requirement is. It looks like 2-to-1, but we're really not sure yet. We're not too sure yet on what the match is going to be. We know there's going to be one. We're just not sure how it's going to be defined, and I'll have more information later as those discussions continue. And that's all I had tonight.
That's exciting.
Nothing else?
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we can adjourn. Is that?